There was a time in my life when I saw a movie called Scott Pilgrim. I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. I thought the main character, Scott, was kind of a jerk. I didn't really like the guy. So it's, I think, a pretty strong testament to the rest of the film that I overall quite enjoyed it. Because personally, I have trouble getting into a movie or any story if I don't like the main characters. And I didn't really like Scott, but I ended up enjoying the movie anyway. It's visually interesting, Edgar Wright, so that's not too surprising. It's fun, it's funny, it's playful. It has a great tone, great pacing. Um, Overall, I was entertained by it. So now I shall read the Scott Pilgrim book and see how they compare. Be right back. Like in the movie, Scott Pilgrim is kind of an unlikable jerk. But, like the movie, I still quite enjoyed what I read of the Scott Pilgrim comic series. Um, I mentioned that I sometimes have a hard time enjoying a work if I don't care for the protagonist. Um, but I like both the Scott Pilgrim movie and the book because while Scott is pretty unlikable, he's just a self-centered jerk. I mean, he's that kind of jerk who is so self-centered that he doesn't even realize that he's being a jerk, and that to me is just really unlikable. But as with the movie, everything and everyone surrounding Scott is just really cool and really fun. So the story works. And the story, the basic premise is Scott uh, finds a girl, Ramona Flowers, and starts dating her. Well, now, in order to keep dating her, he's going to have to defeat her seven evil exes in mortal combat! I'm not really exaggerating. Basically, video game boss fights. Now, I can hear some of you rolling your eyes and going, oh gosh, they're doing that person as reward thing again, aren't they? Not really. The way it's framed is Ramona isn't a reward for Scott for prevailing in these trials. It's framed as a consequence of dating Ramona. So fighting her exes is a consequence of dating her rather than dating her being the reward for defeating her exes. So, good call on the writers there. That makes the whole storyline a lot more palatable and a lot more fun. And fun it is. I will say, however, that so far at least, I like the movie better, just because I feel this particular story is better served in movie length. I felt the movie was just better paced. The book just takes its time to an extent where I'm reading it going, okay, yeah, let's just get going here. On the other hand, the book does afford the ability to explore avenues that the movie didn't have time for, such as Scott's previous girlfriend, Knives, who has a much larger role in the comic book, at least for what I've read so far. And she actually. You probably didn't hear that, but I did. And I don't know what that was. Very high pitched squeal. Anyway, Knives is Scott's former girlfriend, and she doesn't take too kindly to being dumped in favor of Ramona. So in the book, she pretty much lives up to her name, Knives, and goes after Ramona. And it's a really fun fight scene. She engages her in a mall or a I think it's a library, but a multi-story library, and jumps at her from 4 floors up, and Ramona rips a pipe off the wall and blocks the attack. It's just a ton of fun. It's a lot of fun. I also really, really like the art style and character design. It's not realistic at all. It's very cartoony, but I find it very cool, very appealing. Um, I'm If it were free, I would read the rest of it, but I can't say I'm engaged enough to really to buy the rest of Scott Pilgrim. But that said, it's very imaginative. It is a fun read. I suppose the only other criticism is the character dialogue is written in kind of an annoying way. All of the characters add or whatever to most of the things they say. They say, hey, let's go to the coffee shop and get some coffee or whatever. Or, I was reading a book or whatever and I thought it was good or whatever. I imagine that's probably just the way the author and his friends spoke. Or maybe that's just the way youth of the time spoke. That's just what he heard, and he was mimicking it in the book. But I kind of want to reach through the pages and slap him, or whatever. But yeah, Scott Pilgrim, I give it a thumbs up. I enjoyed the movie, I enjoy the book, and again, maybe not enough to buy it, but it's a fun story. I think the biggest compliment I can pay it is it succeeds despite the fact that Scott is kind of a self-centered, unlikable jerk. He does have based on what they did with the movie, although there was the theatrical ending and a different ending they shot, and I'm not sure how the book ends. If I remember correctly, the book was still being written while the movie was being made, so maybe it's completely different in the book. But Knives definitely is on an arc. Scott hopefully is on somewhat of an arc. Hopefully by the end of the series, Scott grows up, because he's kind of annoying and unlikable like that. But, not all of us were super cool human beings when we were 23. I'm probably among them. One drawback to doing anything that's not scripted is sometimes I forget to talk about things that I wanted to talk about. I was editing the footage for this episode and realized I didn't mention something really important. Way back on day 1 of 30 Days of Comics, I reviewed Gem and the Holograms, and I talked about how the comic book presents music but doesn't allow me to really understand what it sounds like or what emotion it's trying to convey or what it might feel like. And I've long had this problem with music portrayed in comic books. Well, I should note that Scott Pilgrim actually does this pretty well. Scott is in a garage band called the Sex Bombs, which is a great name. And the book not only writes down all the lyrics. Typically in a comic book, they just write down the lyrics and maybe put little eighth notes next to them to denote that it's sung. Scott O'Malley goes, the creator of the comic, goes a step further, several steps further, and actually puts kind of an editor's note caption in the corner of the page that describes what kind of song this is and what it sounds like. It says it's a high-tempo rock song in 4/4, and it gives you not only the measure markings throughout the lyrics, but also what chord is being used. And it's a junky 3-chord rock song that primarily oscillates between 1 and 4 throughout the entire song, with an occasional flat 6. That might not mean anything to you, and that's totally okay. But for a musician like myself, oh man, that was so appreciated, because I can hear exactly what that sounds like. So, kudos on Scott Pilgrim for actually presenting music in a way that allows, well, some readers, musically inclined readers at least, to really get a feel for and understand and hear what the songs are supposed to sound like. So I just really wanted to say that. So yeah, see you tomorrow.